rushing everywhere like hell. Never any time to waste until it's too late. Am I somebody else's fool? Travel all over the world, searching for the truth. I'm the queen of a world full of nothing. I'm the queen of a world full of nothing. I am turning my mind inward, hoping to find there's a truth that I have never known before.
Oh yeah, welcome to the show, Monique.
Darius, I should have known.
Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and we have the one, the only, the queen of the world, Monique Rhodes. Welcome.
Darius, so good to be here.
Did I surprise you with my song choice?
Yeah, I had no idea. I kind of imagined you were going to do Queen or something like that. So yeah, very funny.
I was gonna pick. Well, I'm like, dude, you're the first person I've had on the show that actually has produced like record albums that are like famous. So I was like, which song should I do? And I started thinking of all these like famous songs, and I'm like that like I would know. And I'm like, dude, fuck that. I'm gonna do Monique's music that I hadn't listened to your music, and I got to listen to your music all afternoon. You're amazing.
I love it. That's so funny. Beautiful. Thank you, Darius.
Did I choose the right song though? Because you had
totally. And also you doing it to karaoke. I mean, you look like the queen yourself.
I am quite the queen.
I think you might be a little bit of queen in there, Darius.
No, just a little smidgen. I mean, I do love Queen. That's my favorite band. But so I'll take that any day of the week. But let's do some housekeeping, guys. Format of the show is quite simple. We are the Greatness Machine. And we're all about bringing greatness in the world in the form of wonderful, amazing guests who are living their passions to create greatness. And today we have the one and only Monique Rhodes. Couple housekeeping items, and then I want to get into a little bio, and then we're going to get into some action. We're live, so start a watch party on Facebook. Ask us questions. My team's on standby. We got Amber waiting. She'll shoot questions over to us. We have a world-traveled songwriter, singer, performer in Monique. And that's not even why I even asked you on the show. I just by chance found out you did that in your former life. But we do have a very special guest with us today. I love her so much. We got to spend an entire year doing an integral leadership program together, got to know each other. And you're an entrepreneur, CEO, teacher, mindfulness expert, musician, singer, songwriter, and all around New Zealand badass. My friend Monique Rhodes. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy.
Such my pleasure, Darius.
So, you know, I like to start the show all sorts of ways. I always like to do the little karaoke thing because of the restream. But I thought, you know, we could do a yoga laugh together if you want to kind of get the action.
If you're happy to teach me the yoga laugh, I'll do it with you.
Wait. You mean to tell me, you being a mindfulness expert and all, that you don't know what a yoga laugh is?
It's a little bit like saying that someone from Holland can speak French.
But you know, they're both in Europe.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So this is how it goes. I do this actually. I'm in a couple CEO groups, and I have an accountability partner, and every day we do this. So what a yoga laugh is a forced laugh.
Okay.
And I can only save it for my most special guests. So
okay. For you. I'm such an easy laugher that a forced laugh will be interesting for me to even, it may not even be forced by the time we do it, Darius.
That's how it goes. So here's how we'll start. I'll show you one, and then on the count of three after I do the one, we'll do three together.
Is it a trick? Are you tricking me?
No. This is
all right.
So I'll show you one. So this is one, and then we're gonna do three of these together. So you just watch me.
All right.
You ready? Just kick.
Yep.
I'm gonna do one. So here's one yoga laugh. That's one.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna
excellent.
You laugh as hard as you can. Three of them.
All right.
Ready? One,
yeah.
2, 3.
Darius, I think you should change the name to it to a Muppet yoga laugh, because when you laugh into the screen like that, you are fully yoga Muppeting it. Yeah.
I'm totally like Fozzie Bear. Um,
Yes, you are.
um, so I love doing that. I get kind of high when I do that. Like, so let
This
me
feels
ask you.
good.
Yeah, I do. It always feels so good. So let me ask you a question, man. How you been? What's new with you?
Yeah, I've been great. Like it's really good. Like there's a mixture of, stuff here with the COVID, but I think all in all, I'm going to look back on it as a really positive time. I like the slowing down. I have fantasies sometimes about being back in New Zealand in the 70s. And right now, I feel like back in New Zealand in the 70s. Things are slow. I'm doing a lot of internal work. I'm doing a lot of teaching. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of progress in the people that I teach. And yeah, I think in a lot of ways, as long as you have the ability to, uh, keep going and you don't have all of the financial fears that a lot of people do, if
Mhm.
you're able to, put those, if you don't have those, I really want to acknowledge how huge they are. Then there's a real opportunity right now to grow and to take quite a big evaluation of your life and see what's important, see where you're at, see what you're focusing on.
Yeah, it's so true. And to your point, not to make light of the financial situation, because there's a lot of people that are getting affected by this,
Yeah.
but that if you're being affected by it, you're gonna have to deal with it, right? And if you're not, then you're lucky. And then there's that's the entire Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like you aren't worried about survival. Well, let's worry about success, and let's maybe take stock of where are we and what are we really trying to accomplish, and what are we really trying to what are we really trying to do here, right? And so when you slow
Yeah.
down, you get I think the cool thing is you get a lot of space for that, which is
Yeah.
scary.
Because that's interesting. Because also for you, it's scary. For me, it's like, I love it. And I think we're discombobulated most of the time. We're like dissolved into so many different directions, expectations. I have to do this, I have to do that. If I don't take this opportunity up, am I going to miss out? And so we lose our connection with our inner self, really. And I think over this time, a lot of people are starting to be a lot more connected with themselves, and it's a way more powerful place to come from.
Yeah, no, why I said it's scary. That kind of just fell out of my mouth, but it's I totally agree with you that it's this really powerful place to come from. But I think for some people that's like this empowering moment, and for other people they're like, dude, I've been like hiding from that.
Of course,
Eh,
most people are hiding from it.
yeah, I think.
That's the whole thing that we do in the world, is we're so busy running away from ourselves because we're afraid of it, because we live in a consumeristic society that's constantly trying to grab our attention. That's the nature of it. So when all that attention is a little bit more on us, then yeah, for loads of people it's super scary, particularly if you're living by yourself. It can be even more challenging.
Yeah, so when you're working with all these different people, when you said you're seeing a lot of like progress and great change happening, like how do you like when I hear you say that, I think that usually there's pain that creates that, right? There's usually like stress that they say like the best wine, the most stressful grapes or whatever have the best wine or whatever, right? And so the stress on the vine creates the best wine. That's what it is. Sorry. And so, like, what are you seeing? Like, you're seeing that, okay, there's this moment where there's stress and people are looking, and there's this inward moment of reflection, and then you obviously have an amazing talent of teaching and around mindfulness and meditation and all these different areas. What are you seeing? Like, how are people leveraging this time to take maybe those tools, or working with someone like you as a teacher, your business, and moving forward with that?
I think one of the first things, Darius, is that people's survival on a physical level has been threatened. Like the fear, particularly at the beginning, the fear of actually dying from this was very, very uh, felt right at the beginning of the COVID happening. So that's the first thing. My goodness, am I going to die? How many people are going to die? What's going to happen? So that's the first stress. And then because people have been confined, the next stress is the confinement. So then it's like, okay, if I'm not filling my day with all of those things of going to work and all of those people, and then what is it that what is it? What am I left with? And from that comes real creativity, come from that place of not being taken off in a whole bunch of different directions, comes that ability to actually think maybe a little bit more about what life was like when they were kids, maybe to do inward work because there's nowhere else to go. There's only so much Netflix that you can watch, and to actually look and see, okay, there's a whole bunch of things that I used to do that I'm not missing. That's been a big realization for people. But also, there's a whole bunch of things that I used to do that don't serve me, but I thought that they did. And I think that what I've seen from my students is that the slowing down has been really beneficial. They're much more grateful for the simpler things. They're grateful for their health. And also, they're much more connected with people in their lives. So they're putting time and energy into maybe people that they haven't put time and energy into, or putting more time and energy into the people that they love, because all of a sudden they're seeing the finiteness of things, and also understanding that things aren't permanent. Things shift and change all the time, and that it's important to understand that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I relate to every single thing you're saying. I'm like, yep, check, did that. Yep.
Yeah.
All that, and then some. I was thinking while you were saying that, I started thinking about, if you have this, was 7 billion people on Earth, is that the right number? Right. So if you have 7 billion people feeling this way, right? Like, and obviously there's varying degrees of fear and there's varying degrees of introspection, but overall, this is a collective conscious feeling, right? And so
Definitely.
What comes out of that when things do resume? Like, how does the world not change permanently from that? I can't see it just going back to the way it was.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that I've talked a lot about in my podcast, and that is to really take note of what is it that you've seen, because a time will come when you will have forgotten. But if we think about people who lived, like my parents, particularly my mother, was born at the end of the Depression, and she hoards food, and she's when COVID hit New Zealand, I knew if there was one place you wanted to be, you want to be at my mother's house, because she's got enough food in her house without even going to the supermarket to last her a good 6 months to a year, just because she's been through that already. So she knew. So I think on practical levels, we'll be a little bit more aware that things can change on a dime like that. I hope that we will be more thoughtful about the way that we are in the world. And I think some things will naturally shift and change. But I also think that we forget things pretty quickly. And there will be a time that will come when we get out of this crisis where we will literally have forgotten a lot of what we've learned over this time, which is why I think it's really important to take half an hour or 15 minutes and keep track of it, like every few weeks. Like, what is it that I'm learning? How am I growing in this time from this place? What would I tell my future self that I want to remember? And even like write a letter to your future self, saying, hey, these are the things that I'm learning. Don't forget them once everything takes your attention again.
So yeah, I love that idea. Like we did some of that practice in Stegen, right, around the writing the letters to ourselves. And it was funny when I reread them. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was saying this. I wasn't listening to myself, right, at all.
Yeah, sure.
But it's I think it's interesting to think that, that is a great question. What's the letter you'd write to yourself now? And I think that's a great practice to kind of appreciate the learnings, because to your point, and this is maybe just a survival mechanism, we do forget quickly trauma and crisis and pain because we're wired to do that, so we can just move on, right? Or at least move on, maybe not as healthy as we can be, but to move on just for the sake of survival, right? And so when you look at your business, right? And you're doing, I understand your business fairly well, but if you wouldn't mind, can you kind of give our audience some description of exactly what your business is, how we've talked about you being a teacher and teaching mindfulness, but it's not more than you just having like some class that you're teaching, right? So if you don't mind, just kind of tell the audience what exactly your business is and what are you doing and how it's being affected by all of this.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what I do is I teach people how to transform their lives by learning to work with the habitual behaviors of their mind. So really the theory is that we think we're kind of in control of our lives. We're present, but we're not. We're really running on habitual patterns. And if we can shift those habitual patterns, we can shift our lives rather than relying on, happiness and suffering, believing that they come from external circumstances. Once we start to learn that they actually come from our mind and we start to train and tame our mind, then we can transform our lives. So that's what I teach. My program, that the 10-minute mind, is used by thousands and thousands of people all over the world, and by over 70 universities and colleges worldwide also make it available for their staff and students. The other program that I have is called the Happiness Baseline, which is an 8-week online course teaching you how to raise your happiness levels, to really understand that they're not, even though they appear solid, most people stay at a particular baseline for most of their lives, that they're not, that you can raise them. And this has come from my own personal experience of having a pretty rough childhood and a pretty messy time in my teens, to the point where I tried to take my own life at 19 years old from a deep, deep, deep depression. And then going on and making it my personal mission to study what was the difference between people who were happy and what was the difference between people who were suffered, and how could I move from someone who was suffering so much across to someone now who's, really like solidly happy every day, if not almost every day of my life. Very, very positive. And so that's what I teach. And we have some some other courses that I'm teaching at the moment to help support with COVID. We have a podcast. I'm podcasting daily. But yeah, that's my main thing, to really teach people that they're way more powerful, way more in control of their reality than they perhaps realize.
I love that, and thank you for sharing that. I have a question for you, which is a very selfish question. So you, like, as you know, I just wrote a book and it's being published in 5 weeks from tomorrow. And it's all about core values. So I'm kind of, for my own reasons, which are not exactly like yours, but there's my stories, I think most of these dramatic, like, I don't want to say obsessions, because maybe that's not the right word, but this thing where you get like super hyper focused on some, like, let's say yours is around mindfulness and happiness and how do you live a happy life. Like, I think mine actually stems from that too. As mine was, how do I create impact and do it in a way that feels very fulfilled, right? That I do it from a place that feels authentic and from a very, like, my cup has to be full while I'm doing it. And core values is where I landed on that, where it's leveraging the asset of core values in my business. And then the more I did in my business, I was like, why am I doing this in my personal life? Like, this is insane. That, like, it was because I was totally out of balance in my personal life. And I was like, well, that's not bringing me fulfillment. And then it ended up creeping into my personal life. And now I'm just like, if you're not doing this, you're fucked. Like, you're not doing, like, I know why you're screwed up. I can tell you're not being who you're supposed to be in the way you're supposed to be. Right. So my question for you around mindfulness and around these ideas around happiness, how do you see core values playing in that? Like, do you incorporate that into your work, or is that, like, tell me about that?
To me, core values are really important as really to create a lighthouse for yourself. So I always say, like, we can look at all the things that we want to create in our life, and we can say, well, I want to create this or create that or manifest this, manifest that. But you and I both know that when you die, none of that matters. What matters, the impact that we have, is how we are with people, who we are in the world. So it's really important for us to look at this aspect when we're doing our work. You might go, I want to be really successful in my business and I want to meet the person of my dreams and I want to have a beautiful home and all that. But to me, what's most important for me personally is what is it that I'm bringing into the world? And I think that the core value work that you're doing is so powerful, Darius, because it helps to align us to where it is that we're wanting to go on a level that's maybe a little bit less tangible. So I always describe it like if I'm in Los Angeles and I want to get to New York, it's really important for me to, one, have a map, and two, know what New York looks like for when I get there. If I don't have either of those two things, the chances of me stumbling on New York are pretty low. And even if I stumble on it, what I may find is when I get there, I don't recognize it. And I think it's really powerful to have a starting place and to have this idea of, if I was in the most perfect kind of expression of myself, what would that be? What would that look like? And to really do that work and play it out is really important and really vital. Something I do more with my private clients, actually, when I'm doing private coaching. But I think that the work that you're teaching in your book, even though you haven't sent me my copy of it yet, and other people I know have it, just a little flag there, Darius. But no, it's all good. But I know how important this work is to really create that lighthouse of this is where I'm going. This is where I want to go, because otherwise you don't have that container to actually achieve it. And I really believe that you can achieve so much if you have that vision about those qualities about yourself. And for me, they're really, really important.
Yeah, no, you're preaching to the choir. By the way, the fact that you haven't got your book is going to be similar to the beginning of the show where I surprise you.
Excellent. I really hated it the other week when people were throwing I've got Darius's book around, and I was like, damn, I'm obviously not as loved by Darius as I thought I was.
No. If we weren't so close to book launch, then it wouldn't. It's because I can't tell you. It's a surprise.
I'm teasing you, Darius.
Actually looking at the surprise right now. Yeah. and I told my team, I'm like, they're like, when do you want these books to go? And I'm like, we gotta wait off. We gotta hold up because of the surprise. So you'll see. When that surprise comes, when you're promoting it, the people that got just the book will be like, I wish I was Monique.
Damn. Now I'm really excited.
I'm going to make your day. Trust me.
Oh, I know you will.
We have a question from the crowd. Any advice for someone who's looking to make a shift but may not know which habit to start with? Is there a place people should start?
Yes, without a question. Great question. Yes, the first place to start. The one thing that underlies it all is working with the mind. I have to say to you, start a meditation practice. Find something that works. Come and join the 10-minute mind. You can try it for 10 days for free. Then it's only $9 a month. Come and join it. Come and try it out. See if I'm the person that teaches you. There's no woo-woo about me. I'm going to teach you true Kiwi style. Imagine that I'm a farmer and I'm teaching you how to meditate. It's a little bit like that. So it's really like, I love teaching people who have never meditated before, because I know how much I struggled to find a path for myself to learn meditation. And I know it's a discipline, but in 10 minutes a day, I try to make it as easy as possible for you. And I have so many people who never dreamed they could meditate. And I teach them how to do it, because there's no bindi, there's no hairdresser or anything. I'm a motorbike riding rebel who swears that meditation is a superpower. And that's why it's so important, because that's your foundation. From a foundation of a meditation practice, you then are able to start to shift and change your habits. But it's harder to change your habits without that practice, because habits are based on the mind. And if you can learn to work with your mind first, then you can start changing the other habits.
Do you want to know what my biggest takeaway from doing meditation has been?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do. I don't know what it is. What is it?
So it's giving me some space, right? So first of all, I'm fully convinced that I have like multiple personalities, or like voices in my head, right? Like not where there's like different. I mean, there is Marius and Scarius and Darius, but those guys come out when I drink too much. Marius is fun. Like I don't think you've met him. He's a good time. Scarius, I'll put him in the closet. But anyway, what I found is that, and I started a meditation practice about 1.5 years ago, like pretty consistently. Like I try to meditate every day, and that usually happens. But I found that I'm a nihilist. I'm fucking mean to myself. I lie to myself, and I come down on myself super hard all the time, right? And I found that through my meditation practice that I actually have identified that I do this, and that there's like a space. There's like this
the gap.
Just a gap, right? Like where I'm like,
yeah,
like it happened before our call today. By the way, I had this really like kind of shitty moment that happened. Can I tell you about it?
Please.
It's a perfect example of this. So I got asked to do this talk for the Mortgage Bankers Association on my book, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we have like hundreds of people that'll show up." Dude, like 6 people show up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there talking on. First of all, they're on Zoom, not on Zoom. They're on Adobe Connect, which is like being on freaking WebEx, and the technology's crashing. Like mid talk, I had to be on my phone. It was a clusterfuck. And then I get 6 people who literally don't ask any questions, and it's an hour-long talk. And then I got a bunch of like mediocre reviews on the talk. And I was like, literally left the talk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my book's gonna be a failure.
Right. Okay. So
Right?
you go from here to there, like instantly based on 6 people you've never met before.
Yeah. 6 people who are probably not even the right people to have been in on that thing. It was just a total waste of my time. And I started like doubting myself hard. I'm like, wow, I need to change my talk. And I'm like, and now mind you, let me rewind. 2.5 weeks ago, I did the exact same talk for 100 people in Australia over Zoom. And I have 5 pages of Zoom comments of them like literally like exalting my name as God, right?
Yeah.
And it was a polar opposite reaction. And I was like, oh, I'm onto something. This is my book's going to be so successful. So I had the opposite reaction, right? But I got done. I was like, dude, this ruined my day. I was pissed. I was like, why did I even do that? I'm like, and I was mad. And then I was beating myself up. Oh, you got to go hire someone to help you build your talk, make sure your talk is presentation's better. And what are you really trying to do? And I started imagining all this crazy shit, like me doing talks in front of people and the crowd not being interested. I mean, I literally went down the rabbit hole of failure, right?
I so know it. I know where you went.
And then I had the second moment where I was like, I wonder, and I had this vision. You're gonna love this because of your background as a musician, you will love what I'm about to say. I said, I bet you the Beatles were at some shitty bar where no one clapped at the end of their fucking performance once. And they did not quit.
Exactly. But Darius, I think that there's a really important insight in there that you've missed as well. And that is that you need to move to Australia. Obviously, it's your calling.
What's funny is I do actually, I've been kind of having that feeling because I keep getting like a lot of the Australians dig my vibe, right?
I love it.
And my wife's family
could be your place.
Maybe, but I've been thinking that I'm like, am I supposed to move to Australia because they really like my stuff?
Could be. There's worse places in the world to be.
Yeah, I wonder where. Who knows?
I'll leave that up to your imagination.
Let me think about that for a second.
But I think that your point is really interesting though, Darius, because I think there's 2 things in there. The first one is that our mind so easily latches onto the negative. So you've had this amazing experience with all of these Oka Aussies who are in love with you, and you're like, yes. And when the difficult experience happens with these 6 people, your mind doesn't revert back to that. It just goes down that negative place. So that's the first thing, is to remember that our minds have such a propensity and habitual behavior of going into the dark place much more easily than the positive place. So that's the first thing. But the second thing that is important to remember is it's all just stories, all of it. It's really whatever interpretation that we decide we're going to take from it. So you can sit there and go, wow, all these people loved me, and oh my God, these 6 people didn't like me. Why did no one come? Is it my talk? But it's all just a story. And on a practical level, what you can do is, really, do practical things like surveying, find out what people resonated with, what they didn't, maybe massage some of your talk a little bit more for your American audience. Maybe it's not working as well. But just to really understand, as you already have, that's just a story. Like, both of them are just stories. My teacher would always say, it's like, to have equanimity is so important, that you would be gifted the keys to the city of Paris, and then the following day they would be taken away from you, and to have equanimity in both of those situations. The only thing that happens is we get attached to our stories around it. So whatever the stories that we're telling ourselves about it, both of them are fantasies. So, and that's where meditation teaches you. Like, I always describe it like this. One of the things about meditation is people think that they shouldn't have thoughts, but our thoughts are just as normal as the waves in the ocean. They're just as normal. So if we see our thoughts like the waves in the ocean, what we want to become is the surfer. We don't want to get overwhelmed by them. We want to become the surfer of those thoughts and emotions. And the important thing to remember is our thoughts and emotions are as transient as the waves. So this elation that you felt from these people in Australia loving it, and these 6 people not being as warm to what you were doing, in 2 months, you won't even be thinking about it, won't even remember it. In a year, you will have forgotten most of that. But we hold these experiences as extremely solid, and we reflect them as, oh my goodness, this is a reflection on who I am. Right. But it's not. God knows what happened to those 6 people before they came in, the environment they'd come from, what was happening. Maybe it didn't resonate with them. And who cares? Clearly, what you do resonates with people. So, so again, it's the solidity, the creating the story and creating solidity around it. That's the problem. And meditation teaches you that those thoughts and emotions are merely transient, as transient as the clouds in the sky, and to not take it all so seriously.
Yeah, it's so funny because so there's 2 things that, and you just taught me something right now, and I'll feed it back to you in a second. But my initial response was, I was like, look, dude, you're lying to yourself right now. You're telling yourself a story, right? Like, none of this is true. And then I got opinionated. I was like, yeah, these are a bunch of mortgage people, and fuck them.
Defensive. Defensive.
Yeah. I'm half Italian and half Persian. Like we gut people for putting us down.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like there's I met this Italian guy once. He said, revenge is sweet in the heart of the Italian. I'm like, someone does you wrong, like, you don't do them twice as wrong back, and you love every ounce of it, which I don't actually feel that way. But anyway, and then I was like, no, man, to your point, this is a story. None of this is true. It was just a bad talk. I probably need to be more cognizant of who I did do the talk for. And to your point, because I didn't ask enough questions of who the audience was going to be, and it is meant for a very specific audience. And to your point was, there is some stuff I need to probably tighten up the talk, right? Like which that's fine. But what I got from what you just said was not what I had expected, which was the night that I had when I crushed it in front of 100 Aussies, I was patting myself on the back hard. And there's something to be said about enjoying the moment, right? But not at the expense of the next moment, right? And so, which is what I realized I did, is I did it so much so it became at the expense of the next moment. And that's where I was like, when I think of equanimity, I'll be honest with you, I only really thought of it from the perspective of the negative. I hadn't thought from the perspective of, if you gave me the keys to the gate of Paris, or the city of Paris, I would be like, I'm the best. And if you took it away, and the next day if you took it away, I wouldn't think of equanimity then. I would think of, I'm best. And of course I deserve the key. But to your point, it has to be like, this is just a moment. It's cool, but it doesn't define who I am.
And also, Doris, there's another point in there about what success is, because you're measuring your success on a tangible. Oh, there's all these Aussies, and they thought I was great. But there's something that you don't know, is that there may have been one person out of that six who took something away that you said and applied it to their life and created a shift in their life, no matter how small that was. That's success. So you don't even know that. Like, again, the story is saying, well, they didn't really appreciate it. So again, it's that question of values, like what is success for you in a talk like that? And I know for me, it's always, as long as I reach one person in a way that's meaningful, that might create them to think twice about something or shift something, then it's successful. That's it,
Yeah. It's all kind of coming together for me personally. I love that. So thank you for that, because I've been thinking a lot lately. I think she's not the prime minister, but she's the first minister of Scotland. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
I'm
Oh,
blanking.
yes, I know.
She's got
Nicola,
an
is it?
interesting name.
Right.
If I Google her right now, we'll know who I'm talking about.
If you want to.
I want to Google her because she's the first minister of Sturgeon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Nicola Sturgeon.
Nicola Sturgeon. And so I heard, which I brought her up a couple times on the show. I'm in love with her. Like, I'm like, she's like she's amazing. And her whole thing is around this whole idea of changing the way we measure success as a country, right? From a GDP perspective. And I've been hearing this, they do this in Bhutan, and Chip Conley wrote a book about it.
And New Zealand at the moment.
Oh, New Zealand
yes, it's happening in New Zealand. Yeah, she's making policies based on the well-being of New Zealanders rather than on GDP.
That's amazing. We need every country to do this. That's how you fix the world, because what's happening right now, and I'll try to stay away from political talk, but I just want to say this one thing, is that those behaviors are being called socialism.
Yes.
Right? We are changing the GDP measurement to measuring childhood literacy and happiness in children. The measurement of that is now being called socialism. And I'm like, those are not the same thing. Maybe there's certain processes that are similar, but that we are looking at the collective whole and we're looking at how they're benefiting. But let's just get something straight here. Socialism is the privatization of taking all private assets and making it public, right? Those aren't the same thing. So with her, you made me think of that right now, because how are you defining your success? And let's just say that if we can't even do it on an individual level, how do we expect nations to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's also that thing of, you're a guy, there's that thing of liking it to be en masse. Oh, yes, there were all those people that loved it. There's a great story that my teacher always told about the starfish story. There's a beautiful story of, there's a guy walking up the beach, and there's all these starfish have been washed up onto the beach, and he's there and he's throwing them into the water. And from the other direction, this woman's coming, and she sees him, and she says to him, "What are you doing?" As he's throwing them in one by one, she said, "You can't make a difference. There's millions of them." And he picked one up and showed it to her, and he said, "I can make a difference to this one." And he throws it in. And that is, to me, that is the measure of success. Can I get to the end of my life and know that I helped one person? Then my life has been successful. And this again is where our values come in. Is the value based on me looking big and me looking like, the person who's helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people? But no, it's about, have I helped somebody? Have I genuinely, with a good heart, helped somebody? And if I have, then that is a successful life, or a successful day, or a successful week. We can never measure the impact that we can have on people by genuine, authentic presentness and showing up and helping someone. It's incredible. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. No, I'm so happy you're on my show right now. You're making guys, we have such an amazing person right now, Monique, here. And so if you have questions, like I don't know why you're not milking it. I'd be like, question. So yeah, guys, we have time for a couple questions. Please feel free to ask them. So, you know, and let's go to that. I mean, you started this business, and you came from the music world, which is a pretty unforgiving, brutal business. And you traveled all over the world. You made tons of music, and you did that for most of your adult life until recently. Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And so when you were doing that, how did you decide to segue out of that into this different world?
Yeah,
such different worlds.
sure. Well, I think the biggest thing was that it was tiring. You know, it was a pretty tiring kind of life, and I wasn't going to be one of those people who was, you know, playing at a bar getting $10 a head. I did a lot of exclusive concerts around the world for here in America and in Europe for like really exclusive private gigs, and I loved that. But it was tiring. And literally what happened was I was living in India. I'd done a big project in New Zealand, and I went to India to kind of have a break. And I ended up working with Sounds True, which many people know, and creating an album with them with a bunch of spiritual teachers from Eckhart Tolle, Pema Chodron. I wanted to create an album with chill out music behind it, behind spoken word teachings. I just thought it was more palatable. And then I was approached by the Dalai Lama's people to do something similar for him. And while I was doing that, I was basically staying in a little village in the south of India, riding my motorbike around India, having a great time. And these two girls came to me and they said to me, "We know that you sit on that rooftop every morning meditating. Will you teach us?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And I told them 3 times that I wasn't going to do it because I didn't for a moment think that I could teach them anything. But after the third time of them asking 3 days in a row, I started to feel a little bit guilty. I'd been studying for a long time, very intensively, meditation. And so I agreed to do it. And they came up, and I think I gave the worst meditation class anybody in the world has ever given, because I didn't know what I was doing. And the next day they came back at the same time with 2 of their friends. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "Oh, we thought you might teach us again. And, you know, here's some friends that we wanted to come as well." And before I knew it, there was like between 30 and 50 people on my rooftop every morning, and I was doing these classes. And it was really fascinating, because the second time I taught, rather than teaching them, I just actually kind of talked to them about why meditation had changed my life and why I believed in it so much. And it shifted something in me. It made me understand that I did have something to offer them. And I saw extraordinary changes in people. People would stay in that town. There was one Italian woman actually who was a real turning point for me. She'd stayed 2 weeks longer in the town. And on the day that she was leaving, she came to me and she was very emotional. She was in her 60s and she cried and she said, "You know, I was brought up where meditation was something that was very against my Catholic upbringing. And she said, I've stayed here 2 weeks longer to learn from you, and you have changed my life." And I was like, this is really interesting. And I saw the same with a lot of the young people. It was a similar thing happening. So I just created the 10-Minute Mind initially as a 30-day program, gave it to some friends to see if it resonated with them for 30 days, and got such a massive response that I happened to be in London, got a meeting with University College London, one of the top universities in the world, and we trialed it there, and the results were phenomenal. And suddenly everything opened up, and now it's moved from just teaching meditation to really teaching the whole toolkit of what I did to completely transform my life, which is what I teach in the Happiness Baseline and in my other courses. So yeah, it happened very organically and naturally, and surprisingly, if you'd said to me, 5 years ago, this is what you would be doing, I would laugh at you. But I
Wow.
love it. I'm so, as you can hear, totally passionate about it. And there's nothing that I love more than seeing people's lives change from the wisdom that I've been gifted. All I'm doing is passing it on. And yeah, it's wonderful. So I feel like I just feel so happy just from my work alone.
When you were, that's so beautiful to hear. So sorry, I went straight to my question. I'm such like a guy. I'm like, oh, I have a question. Like, yeah. I'm glad you're happy. Let's talk about what I care about. No, so when you were making that transition, I mean, at that point, how long had you been a musician for?
I started performing when I was about 20 years old. So yeah, it'd been quite some years. So I made a deal with myself. Literally, I'm 19 years old and I'm in this massive crisis in my life. And I just sat and said to myself, if I could do anything I wanted, what would it be? It was almost like at 19, I had the epiphany that maybe some people have in their 40s or 50s. It was like, what is it that I want to be doing? There's no room for just doing something because my family might want it or other people might expect it of me. And I had been writing music from a really young age, and I'd studied classical violin for like 12 years, very intensively. And I loved writing music. And so I just said to myself, well, if I could have the dream job, it would be a musician. So I gave myself 2 years. I said, I'm going to give it 2 years. If at the end of 2 years, I cannot do this, then I will pivot to whatever it is I can do. And that was it. Like I did it.
And wow, so and obviously it worked out. And so you were doing it. You gave yourself the 2 years. You found success. You built on that, and it obviously scaled. And then you left it though. I mean,
Yeah, I left it, but not in a dramatic way. It just felt like this was a transition. And I've been doing quite a lot of talks and stuff, and I before COVID, and I'm just really excited to bring the live performance singer element into my talks. I think it's going to give me a bit of an edge.
yeah, no, that's why I sing at the beginning of my show.
Exactly. But I also, like for me, music, I'll always be a musician at the end of the day. And of course, I write all the music for I write and produce all the music for my meditations.
Oh,
So
cool.
you have the option when you do my classes, my meditation classes with or without music, and I've composed all that music. So yeah, I don't think that it will be the doors closed on it. And I look forward when COVID's over to actually we'll be running my first retreat with my students, and I'm really excited about performing at that. So yeah, I don't it's never going to leave me, and I'm excited to do more of it. In fact, yeah, no, actually, I was going to tell you something, but it was a surprise, so I'm not going to tell you that.
Oh
No,
yeah, don't I love
yeah,
surprises. I mean, I love it.
exactly.
So yeah, no,
Yeah,
same. We have another question. Should teams be doing meditation together? If so, how often?
yeah, great question. You have an option with that. One, if you could get your team to do a daily meditation practice, like take the 10-minute mind and everyone do it together first thing in the morning, you would have a much better result with it because people would be doing it. So, absolutely. I think it creates like doing meditation together is super powerful. The more people there are, the higher the energy. And if you made that part of your culture at work, it would be a very, very powerful thing for you to do. So there's no shoulds in the world, but absolutely. And there'll be some people who would say, well, I would rather meditate on my own. But if it's at all possible, if you're so inclined, do it with your team. Absolutely, without a doubt. What was
What
the second part of the question?
how often should they do it?
Daily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. 10 minutes. I mean, so I do have a question on that though, because this is something I started toying with before I decided to step away as CEO of my company, which was I want to start every meeting with a meditation with my executive team. But I thought I'd kind of get pushback from the people that are non-believers. Now, I will tell you that I moderate a bunch of CEO forums where it's like me and like 8 crazy, hardcore A-type personality CEOs, a lot of them running like crazy big businesses. And I just said, fuck it. And I was like, we're starting every single meeting with a recentering, and I just make them do recentering for 3 minutes. And I noticed that there's a difference every time. They all appreciate it. So maybe, do you think starting less than 10 minutes to get people kind of warmed up is
I
a good
think
idea?
that I think there's a difference between recentering, which is bringing you back to your center, and meditation. And I think that
I agree.
if you're doing a meditation practice, then recentering becomes much easier because you naturally kick into it. So if you've got a team that doesn't have a meditation practice, then I would much more suggest you do a meditation practice. 10 minutes is great. It's effective. It's absolutely been proved to be effective. And I'm a real believer in you're better to do a shorter practice regularly than a long practice that you do once every week or once a month. It's way better. Because what happens is, like, I will challenge anybody to do 30 days of the 10-minute mind and not either one, have people comment that they see a change in them, or see a change in themselves. It works. So that consistency is I mean, that's the ideal, but it's the same with anything. Like I've been, since COVID, really upped my weight training, and I'm probably in the best physical shape I've been in for a long time, literally because I'm consistent. It's the same thing. Your mind is a muscle. We have this whole thing where you know, we have this whole thing where particularly here in LA, we're all about, what we put in our body. And, we like to have everything beautiful in our homes, and we like to have clean clothes and all of that. But, you know, we just throw so much junk into our minds, that one place that is actually the deciding factor of our happiness or our suffering. We inundate it with so much rubbish, and we never clean it out. So it's really important that we take care of our mind in the absolute same way we would take care of our body.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it starts there, right? And then you're hitting the nail on the head. And I mean, I haven't done your course. I'm gonna do your course. That's I'm so excited for that, because I've been doing. I
I'll
did the.
get you in.
Oh yeah, no, thanks. Can you hook me up?
Yeah,
You know somebody who knows somebody who can get me in? Um,
maybe I do.
I did what got me into it. I used to say, I don't know if I told you this. I used to say there's two things in life I hate: hiking and meditation. And and
Oh,
I still hate hiking, I think, but I'm toying with the idea of trying to do. There's this thing about hiking 14,000-foot peaks. They call them a 14er, I guess. I've heard about this. And so I'm toying with that idea, which that's straight up, that's going on a hike. But I started doing the Waking Up course, the Sam Harris course, and that one resonated with me. Like I tried Calm and Headspace and all that stuff, and I didn't like those ones.
you absolutely have to find the place. And it's a little bit like that. It's like, Darius, I don't know where you've been going hiking, but as soon as COVID's over, go to New Zealand, go hiking there, and tell me that you don't love hiking. Because if you are in the most magical, beautiful Lord of the Rings type environment, I would struggle to think that all of a sudden hiking didn't take on a whole different story in your head.
I think I got to pick the right environment, to your point, because I did a bunch of hiking in like Malibu Canyon, and I didn't like that.
No, because it's like,
Hills
it's
and
Malibu Canyon with no, you want to be in the forest with birds and beautiful scenery. And I mean, I struggle here. Hiking here is like, meh, because it's not. But go to New Zealand. Like, I'm gonna go home at Christmas time. I just cannot wait to just go hiking with the trees and the birds all flying around you, and you come into an opening, there's a beautiful lake and beautiful mountains. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, your environment is really important. So yeah, go
yeah.
hiking. You'll find Australia is a little bit similar to Malibu. When you go and live in Australia, you won't enjoy hiking there as much either.
No,
So you have to jump on a plane and head to New Zealand.
I'm gonna go big. I'm just gonna start in New Zealand so that I can enjoy it, and then
The
find
way,
places like Colorado or something, or like Tahoe, or the redwoods.
yeah,
Yeah, I never thought about it till you just said it, that you just got to pick the right environment that's visually
exactly.
stimulating. I never thought of it like that. God, you're teaching me so much today. Um,
And also an environment that's safe. Like here, you've got to be careful of bears and all sorts of things. And when New Zealand broke away from Australia, uh, basically they got all of the most scary things that you could dream up, and we got nothing. Okay, all right, we got nothing.
Safety
In
and
fact,
wonderfulness.
exactly, we just got birds. And when the first settlers arrived in New Zealand, like we only have a native lizard. Everything else is birds. So when you go into, it doesn't mean that, of course, everything else has since been introduced, but we don't have snakes, bears, wolves. Like, you can go hiking in New Zealand and the beautiful scenery of New Zealand, and you're not looking over your shoulder thinking, do I have my friggin' bear blasting thing that you have to have here, and all that stuff? Is there a snake on the ground? None of it. I shouldn't say it too much because I know all you Americans are trying to get to New Zealand at the moment. So I better play it down. Keep it
everyone's gonna
secretive.
move. We're all gonna move to New Zealand.
Yeah.
My gosh, we're running behind here. So last question from me. Have you ever considered what would be your last meal on Earth?
I haven't.
Would you be able to answer it if I asked you the question?
What would be my last meal on Earth? Gosh, no one's ever asked me that. Definitely a really nice glass of California Red,
Okay.
without a doubt. Like a nice thick one, like Refugio or something like that. One of my favorite wines.
Okay.
And I think that I would want to have absolutely the best Indian meal that someone could make me. I really love Indian food, particularly South Indian food. And I love all of the flavors. Gosh, they're just incredible. South Indian to Sri Lanka, down there, you sit down and you'll get a plate and there'll be rice, and then there'll be these little dishes that you'll put in there with just the most extraordinary flavors. So I think that's what I would like, which is the way that I live, Darius. I'm always looking for the extraordinary flavors in life. So I think that would be the perfect way to go out.
I think we have that in common. Well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to spend time with you, Darius.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, the 10minutemind.com, the 10minutemind.com, and the happiness baseline are the other two places you can come and find me. And also we have the 10-Minute Mind podcast. I'm podcasting daily. So, it's a short 10 to 20 minute podcast every day. People love it. We get lots of people listening to it. So obviously there's something in there that's delicious enough to keep them coming back.
Yeah, no, we got to check that out, guys. So grateful to have Monique on the show. I'm so happy to have you as my friend and to be able to share this time with you.
Likewise, Darius.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook at The Real Darius M. If you want to share this, there's a lot of amazing jewels here for you to share with friends who are considering a meditation practice or want to get some help during this COVID times. I really do believe that Monique's doing some incredible work with that. So please check her stuff out, share this with friends, start a watch party, invite your friends to check it out. Also, if you want to, we have tons of great shows this week. I mean, do you know who Don DePani is? Are you familiar with him, Monique?
No.
He's this really semi-famous, if not famous, Hindi monk, ex-Hindi monk that teaches, he teaches basically how to be focused. And so he's going to be on the show this week.
I'm gonna make a note to watch that.
Yeah, I think you really like him. We have my best friend from high school, who's an elementary school teacher, and he's like a total comedian, and he does Michael Jackson impersonations. We'll be having him. Well, and I wanted him on to talk about kids going back to school, so we'll be having that. But we have a bunch of more people coming on that are going to be amazing. So please join us. Go to www.therealdarius.com. Sign up for all the social stuff. And guys, thank you so much. I'm grateful to have you as an audience and looking